Once upon a time, in the heart of the whimsical town of Whimsyville, there lived a boy named Oliver who had an extraordinary hat. It wasn't just any hat. Oh, no. This one was magical. With a flick of his hat, Oliver could jump into different worlds. One moment he might be in a candy kingdom where rivers flowed with chocolate and gingerbread houses lined the streets. The next, he could be riding a gigantic butterfly over a jungle full of singing parrots. But then, oh dear, something always went wrong. And suddenly, instead of landing in a fantastical place he'd read about, Oliver would find himself in a mysterious land where nothing was as it seemed. And today was one of those days. As Oliver put on the hat and gave it a little twirl, he felt a funny tingling sensation. And when he took off the hat, he realized he wasn't in Kansas anymore. He was in a strange land where time moved backward. Trees sprouted buttons instead of leaves, and the river flowed upwards. And perched on a nearby branch was a very peculiar sight. A squirrel wearing a monocle and a top hat. "Well, hello there," said the squirrel in a surprisingly deep voice. "I must say you look quite out of place. Are you lost?" "I think so," said Oliver. "I was just playing with my magical hat and I do want to know how to get home," said the squirrel, stroking his whiskers. "It sounds like you need some help from a professional." And with that, he scurried down the tree and led Oliver to a crooked cottage made of mismatched socks. "Just knock 3 times, said the squirrel. "But mind the first 2 knocks, or else you might not like what happens." And with that, he disappeared up the tree. Oliver wasn't sure if he liked the sound of this, but he had no choice. He knocked once, twice, and then hesitantly. On the 3rd knock, the door swung open and out popped a tiny old woman with a pointy nose and a cloud of gray smoke following behind her. "Who's there?" she croaked. "It's me, Oliver," he said. "That squirrel told me you could help me get home." The woman peered at him over her spectacles. I might be able to help you, but first you'll have to answer my riddle. What has an eye but cannot see?" Oliver thought long and hard. "Is it a needle?" he guessed. The woman shook her head. "Wrong. Try again?" Oliver racked his brain. "What about a mirror?" The woman smiled. "Correct. Now I shall help you." She waved her magic wand and poof, they were whisked away in a bubble. The old woman deposited Oliver outside a magnificent castle made of pure spun sugar. "This is the home of the Trickster King," she said. "He's the one who keeps stealing people's things, including time, dreams, and, well, hats. You have to trick him and get your hat back before time runs out." With that, she handed Oliver a small box. "Here's a magic genie. He'll help you." Then she vanished in a puff of smoke, leaving Oliver alone in front of the daunting castle. Taking a deep breath, Oliver walked towards the castle. His heart thumped like a drum solo as he approached the main gate. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed across the courtyard. "Halt, traveler, and answer my riddle or face my wrath." Startled, Oliver turned to see a suit of armor waddling towards him. Its dented helmet wobbled precariously on its head. "Easy as pie," said Oliver, thinking fast. "What has a neck without a head, or a body without legs?" The armor froze, its metal arms hanging limply at its sides. "A bottle," it said in a defeated voice. And with that, it stepped aside, allowing Oliver to enter the castle. Inside, everything was topsy. Clocks on the walls were counting down, and paintings hung upside down. As he navigated these confusing halls, Oliver came across a room filled with books that were talking to each other. They chattered and gossiped, and he couldn't help but eavesdrop. "Did you hear? The Trickster King is looking for a new hat to add to his collection." "Really? I heard he wants a talking one. Can you imagine? Oh, I bet it'll be a silly hat with bells on it. He has such a flair for the dramatic." Suddenly, a book with a bright red cover called out PST. "Hey, you!" Oliver jumped, startled. "Don't tell me you're actually going to help him." "Of course I am," the book said smugly. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Realizing he was in danger, Oliver quickly hid the book under his coat and hurried away. He soon found himself in a grand hall where all the clocks pointed to midnight and a single spotlight shone on a throne at the far end. On it sat a jester-like figure wearing a crown made of playing cards. This must be the Trickster King. He was surveying his court, which consisted of a deck of naughty playing cards who were plotting and scheming, whispering secrets to each other. Oliver knew he had to act fast. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out the book he'd rescued and discreetly opened it. So you want to help me, little book? Said a voice behind him. Why? Yes, Trickster King, said the book eagerly. You see, I've been waiting for someone to rescue me. Rescue you, scoffed the king. What makes you think I would do that? Well, if you want my help defeating that stuffy old wizard, I'm your guy, said the book. The Trickster King paused, considering this. All right, you've got yourself a deal. As the Trickster King left with the book, Oliver slipped out of the hall unnoticed. He knew he had to find a way to break the curse and get back home. Suddenly, a tiny voice squeaked, looking for someone to help you break the curse. Kiddo, startled, Oliver whirled around to see a little field mouse with a thick Brooklyn accent. Who are you? He asked. Name's Nutters, said the mouse, and let's cut to the chase. You want to go home, right? Well, I know a way, but it's gonna take some serious nut cracking. Nut cracking, said Oliver, confused. Yeah, it's a long story, sighed Nutters. Listen, let's just say I used to work here, helping the Trickster King with his schemes and whatnot. But then I got tired of it and escaped. Thing is, I hid a copy of the Whimsical somewhere in this castle. It's an ancient artifact that can restore order to a place that's gone all topsy-turvy. Only trouble is, I can't remember where I hid it. Can't you just ask the king? Oliver suggested. Nutters rolled his eyes. He'd never let me near it. But you? You're just a visitor. Nobody important. Sneaking around shouldn't be a problem. So began
Oliver's grand escape.
Guided by Nutters, he traveled through time, meeting knights made of marshmallows who guarded a drawbridge, navigated a forest of lollipop trees, and even helped a giant sneezing dragon find his missing tissue. Along the way, Oliver faced many challenges, but his determination never wavered. He outsmarted a hungry gingerbread man, befriended a talking hourglass, and balanced a melting snowman on a pogo stick to reach a secret passageway. Through it all, Nutters proved to be an invaluable guide, helping Oliver decipher riddles and overcome obstacles with his quick wit and street smarts. Finally, after what felt like hours, they found it, tucked away in a dusty corner of the castle library. The Whimsical looked like an ordinary telescope, except for the swirling stars that danced within its lens as Oliver raised it to his eye. The chaotic world outside the window began to spin. Hurry, Oliver! Cried Nut. Grab the scope and run! Taking a deep breath, Oliver focused on the swirling colors and poof, he was back in the familiar surroundings of his room in Whimsyville. The adventure had changed him. He realized that with his magical hat, he could travel anywhere, anytime, as long as he was curious and kind. As for the Trickster King, well, let's just say he didn't fare too well without his favorite book. In the end, Oliver learned that the true magic lay not in the whimsical lands he visited, but in the power of friendship and the joy of discovery. From then on, whenever he felt a little bored or a little scared, he just had to remember the magic was all around him. Just the flip of the hat away. The end.